All right, this is going to be your notes video for the 3-5 adding and subtracting linear expressions notes. So this is going to go on page 32 of your notebook when you get back. So here we go. Just going to put it down here. Now, when we say linear expressions, what I mean by a linear expression, all that means is that when we graph it, it's going to create a straight line. And that's most of the expressions we're going to use in 7th grade are going to be linear expressions. You don't really need to know anything else about that, but we are working with linear expressions today. So first, when we add expressions like this, it's going to look like this. So we have an expression here plus another expression over here. So when we do that, we are always going to rewrite the expression as a sum of its terms. Okay, remember what I mean by that is we are going to add the opposite, okay, whenever you see subtraction. Okay, so you are always going to add the opposite when you see subtraction. Okay, so let's do number 1 as we go. So we will rewrite this as the sum of its terms. So here I have 4 times 2x minus 3. I'm going to add the opposite because that's my subtraction sign. I'm going to add the opposite, turn that into a plus negative 3. Okay, next we are going to use the distributive property if necessary. Okay, so how do you know if it's necessary to use the distributive property? That is when there is a number, a constant, in front of parentheses that we need to multiply and distribute. Okay, so remember, the distributive property is like this. So we take our 4 and we distribute it and we multiply it times 2x. When we get 4 times 2x, we get 8x. Then 4 times negative 3, we're going to add that to negative 12 because it's a positive times a negative. So our answer is negative. So 4 times 3 is 12. It's negative 12. Okay, so I did the distributive property. I'm looking over here and there's not a number out front, so I don't have to do the distributive property. So what I can do is I can just bring down my 2x plus 5, and now I have an expression with all the terms in it, and I will begin to combine like terms to simplify. So we are going to combine like terms to simplify. So I am going to take my like terms here. Okay, my first like term is 8x and 2x. Okay, so I am going to take 8x and 2x and I'm going to combine them together, and that gives me 10x because they're both positive, so we combine them to 10x. Okay. And then we have, oops, that doesn't work. Okay, then we have negative 12 and positive 5 that we can combine over here. Negative 12 and positive 5, one's a negative, one's a positive, so when we combine them, they will create a some zero pairs and cancel out. So that means that we do 12 minus 5, okay, which is 7, and I have more negatives than I do positives, so it's going to be negative 7. Now the last thing I have to do is make sure I have an addition sign between my two terms, and that is my final simplified expression. Okay. Next, we are going to do subtraction. So you can see here that it says 5x plus 9 minus 2x minus 4. So we're going to subtract this whole expression from this one. So how we do that algebraically, we are going to use the exact same strategy, except, okay, we are going to distribute the subtraction sign to the entire expression that follows. So what I mean by that is we are really going to multiply the expression by -1. Okay, so we are going to multiply the expression by -1. So let's see what that looks like in real life, because we're going to have to do that here. So remember that the first step is to rewrite the expression as a sum of its terms and add the opposite. So let's go here. Anytime I see a subtraction sign, I'm going to add the opposite. Now this negative here, because we're subtracting the whole expression, it's really like there is a -1 out in front of that whole expression. And we're just going to leave that there for now. And I'm going to add the opposite when I see my next subtraction sign as well. Now, when I do the distributive property, I am going to remember, because I wrote my add the opposite, and then I made sure to write that -1 coefficient in the front. So that way I remember I need to distribute that -1 when I do the distributive property. So let's now do the distributive property. I'm going to start on this side of the expression. 5 times x is going to be 5x plus 5 times 9, which is 45, plus, now this is where we've already distributed this expression. So now this is where I distribute that -1 times 2x. Now, anytime you multiply something times -1, the term really stays the same. The only thing that changes is its sign. So instead of being a positive 2x, it's now going to be a negative, because a negative times a positive is a negative. So it's going to be a -2x. Then let's distribute that -1 to the second term in the expression. -1 times -4. This time it's a negative times a negative, which means that your answer is going to be a positive. So notice that it was a negative, and we're switching that sign to a positive, because when you multiply a negative times a negative, you get a positive, and 1 times 4 is 4. So now I have distributed, okay, both of those constants in front of the parentheses. And now I am going to, combine like terms. So let's find our like terms. Here's 5x and -2x. Let's go ahead and do it. 5x plus -2x. One's a positive, one's a negative. When we combine positives and negatives, they are going to create 0 pairs, so we subtract. 5x minus 2x is going to give us 3x. It's going to be positive because I have more positives. All right, and then I am also going to combine my 45 and my 4. Okay, so 45 and 4 are both positive. We're going to add them together to get 49. And we'll put our little addition sign between those two terms to have our simplified expression. Okay, we're going to do one final example here. Okay, so remember, I am going to rewrite the expression as a sum of its terms. So this is a sum already. Oh, here's my subtraction sign. So I'm going to add the opposite. But notice there is already that number in front of the parentheses. So we don't actually have to add the 1 this time. It's just going to become -2. And then add the opposite here. So now it's plus -3. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do our distributive property. I'm noticing there's nothing in front of this expression, so this expression is just going to come down. 7y plus 5, and then we're going to add negative 2 times 4y. Negative 2 times 4 is going to be negative 8y. So then negative 2 times negative 3. Negative times a negative is a positive, so it'll be positive 6. So now, last but not least, we will combine like terms. So I'm going to circle my first term, which is 7y, which is a like term with negative 8y. Okay, remember a positive and a negative, when we combine them, we have to subtract because they create 0 pairs. 8 minus 7 is just one single y, and I have more negatives than positives, so it's going to be negative y. Okay, and then last but not least, we have positive 5 and positive 6. So when I combine my positive 5 and positive 6, I get 11. And we add those together to get our simplified expression. All right, and that's it for these notes. Go ahead and complete the notes, complete your next assignment, and glue these into your notebook when you can.